welcome. Hello and welcome to the Child Care Business Coach podcast. My name is Evelyn Knight. I thank each one of you for being here and for giving me the time today. And it's kind of crazy what we go through, right? I mean, emotions, it's Monday morning and emotions get so high. And there was so much that we didn't do this weekend, and all the things that just start going into our minds can make us sometimes feel like a failure. It can absolutely make us a lot of times feel like we are failing at what we're doing. Let me know, did you walk into your program this morning and maybe there was a little bit of chaos? Did you wake up this morning and just feel like, why can't the weekend be longer? Mental health as leaders is really suffering right now. It's actually becoming harder and harder and harder, but does it need to be, or is that a choice? So recently, I decided to rebrand my program, and that takes a lot of work on my part. And so I found myself waking up in the mornings and just being like, oh my God, I don't want to do this today. And the to-do list that was going on and on in my head was just kind of overwhelming, because I've got to go do all this and that and this, and I'm like, I don't want to deal with this. And I really checked myself and my thoughts, because it's not normal for me. I'm not usually, no matter what, I'm not normally like a doomsdayer who's like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. So I immediately reframe my thinking, right? After a couple days, not immediately. It took me a couple days to realize, like, what am I thinking here? Where are my thoughts coming from? So once I realized it, I was able to pull it back and just coach myself through it. Like, hey, where is this coming from? You're blessed to have a program to get to go into and rebrand. This is a blessing that I have these amazing traits. So I want you to think about those things that you wake up in the morning and just dread. What if you were able to reframe your thinking? So as leaders, we get caught up in black and white thinking, and it really, really hurts our mental health, hurts our centers, it hurts all the things that we're trying to do, and it makes it harder for us to be leaders. So I want you to hear me really carefully. How hard your job is as a leader is really up to you. It's a choice. And I want you to ask yourself, am I making my job harder than it has to be because of how I see things? So, what is black and white thinking? Black and white thinking is actually a way that we think where we see things in extremes or absolutes, like, oh, they just never listen to me. My staff is all awful. I definitely used to be guilty of this. And sometimes I find myself falling back, but I have to check myself. So, do you do this to yourself? My husband never listens, or I'm always the one doing everything, right? Those words, always, never, those are absolutes. If you're saying those words, then there's a good chance that you are suffering from black and white thinking. And I want to tell you right now, if you are creating your own stress. And I'm not saying you're creating the situations are definitely valid. It's how you're thinking about them that is creating your stress. We all go through the same thing, right? I coach childcare centers all over the country. Lately, I've been going live into each and every center. And I've done hundreds, right? And even just going and touring them, talking to leaderships, what I find is we all have the same problems. And we go through cycles where we all experience the same things. And some owners and directors I come into, it is just the worst thing ever. And the stress is too big for them. And others are like, it's just another day. No big deal. We'll deal with it. And they just have such an easier job of rolling with the punches. That is a choice. But many of you are caught and don't know how to overcome it. So that's what I want to help you with today. And by the way, this podcast episode is brought to us by the Child Care Business Professionals Visionary Circle Summit that is coming. I'm so excited. November 13th through the 15th in Napa, California. So if you're one of those people who are tired of being a small business owner and you know there's more for you, you cannot accept mediocrity, right? Mediocrity. And you know, you just kind of look at the world of early childhood education and you know you're different because you don't buy into the doom and gloom. And you are not a small business owner, but you're a true entrepreneur. Then the Visionary Circle event is for you. But now let's get back into black and white thinking. So it does come from early childhood education. And that extreme thinking of they never, I never, oh my gosh, this is so horrible, all of those things, and even jumping to worst case scenario. When something happens to you, like let's say a child falls on your playground and breaks his arm. Where does your brain go? Does your brain go to, oh, those parents are super cool, nothing's going to come of it. You know, it was just an accident. There's no liability, no big deal, you know, move on. Or does your brain go to, I'm going to be sued, I'm going to lose everything, right? Where does your brain go? Do you look at your staff and think to yourself, this is all their fault. I can't believe they did this to us. I can't believe they put me in this position. I have the worst staff ever. I got to get rid of them. Or does your brain go to the alternative of, I wonder what happened? I have an amazing, wonderful staff. I wonder what happened that threw them off today. Those are, and I know some of you hearing this are going to say, oh, but you don't know my staff, Evelyn. Well, let me tell you, staff trickles down from your leadership, right? It is staff trickles down from your leadership. Who are you recruiting? And it starts at the foundation. Who are you attracting? Who are you choosing to hire? And who are you recruiting? And I, again, have traveled to hundreds of centers and I've seen so many different, in all different demographics. And you can find a wonderful staff no matter where you are. Just that comes, but that is a whole different topic I train on. Completely different. I could do 2 hours on that one, which I do often. So what I want you guys to think about is how do you compartmentalize, right? And this, again, is something that you learned in early childhood. It is a response that saved you at some point in your life. So you continue to use this in your life because it has served you. But now black and white thinking is hurting you. It is really hurting you to think in absolutes. So one of the biggest things is that it will hold you back from success because there's two reasons why. You are probably striving for perfectionism. If you mess up on something, you beat yourself up. Oh, I always mess this up. Why can't I get anything right? Those kind of things are just beating your head down. And we create what are called self-fulfilling prophecies because what we end up doing is we say these things to ourselves like, I just can't get anything right. I mess things up. So subconsciously, your brain is saying, oh, okay, we need to mess everything up. And it is literally setting you up for failure. Now you're acting in a way because that is what your subconscious is programmed for. Did you know that 97% of your actions every day are not conscious thought? You only consciously are doing 3% of everything you do. So your subconscious mind is controlling all of that. So if you're stuck in absolutes and you tell yourself you're a failure, you do nothing right, you miss everything up, nobody listens to you, well, guess what? That 97% that your subconscious is in control of is going to set you up to make all of that true. So that is how it can really hinder your success. You create unrealistic expectations of yourself. Perfectionism is one of the biggest catalysts to failure. We fail our way to success. And if you don't have a good failure tolerance, which I did a whole podcast episode that's called Failure Tolerance, then you are going to be hurting your own psychological health. The other thing on that is we have unrealistic expectations of others. Instead of seeing them as humans, which is a gray area, right? We either think they're the best teacher we've ever had in our lives or the worst teacher we've ever had in our life. But there's not a gray. And when you're stuck in that black and white thinking, we are thinking like, well, they always call into work. They're never doing their job like they should, right? Those kind of things. And we stop seeing the good. There is probably about 20% bad all around you, and 80% of it's probably good. But you become so hyper-focused on that 20% that you label and basically project that 20% bad onto your entire staff and everything your entire staff is doing. So what that ends up doing is alienates your staff. It really will push your staff away from you. And you're basically causing your own misery because you're not looking at the human side and you have these unrealistic expectations. Each one of us, we're humans. We're all going to mess up. It's just how it is, right? We all do. We're not perfect. But when you're striving for that perfectionism, you're creating unrealistic expectations for you and your own staff. And you're setting yourself up for disappointment and failure. The other thing about black and white thinking is we don't do very well considering alternative perspectives. Like maybe your teachers are right. Maybe they have an idea that's better than what you have in place, right? Or like me, I started out this video telling you guys that I'm going through a transformation. I'm transforming something and I wasn't happy about how I have to go about it. So I was telling you, I was waking up thinking, oh gosh, why am I doing this today? And I don't want to go into this and do this. Like, why do I have to do this? Right. And so I was thinking and waking up in a deficit. Last week's episode, I talk about waking up in a deficit. So if you haven't seen it yet, make sure you watch last week's. If you're on my Facebook page, by the way, we do this every week. And these videos are posted to my podcast, the Child Care Business Coach podcast. So if you missed it, the ones that I'm talking about today, you can check us out on YouTube, go to my private page, or my we also have the podcast that you can listen to it on. And again, it's the Child Care Business Coach podcast. So when we get trapped in these cycles, we start our day in a deficit because we're waking up thinking, oh God, this is awful, right? If you're not able to think of alternative perspectives, you can't coach yourself back like what I said I do, right? I automatically coach myself back and I tell myself, okay, really? Am I creating my problem? I am lucky that I have such an amazing program that I can go and I can rebrand. I am blessed that I'm opening another program. I am blessed that I get to do all these things, right? And I'm able to change my perspective. I get to choose. I get to choose how I interpret every single event in my life. And I can choose to interpret it negatively or I can choose to interpret it positively, right? And I've been through a lot, you guys. For those of you who are new to me, I lost my husband. And I knew then that's when I really understood the power of this, that I get to choose my thoughts. I don't always want to go through what I've had to go through in my life. And I definitely wouldn't have chosen the path I was taken down. But I get to choose how I'm going to let it affect my life. You get to choose how you allow the staff to affect your thinking. No one can make you feel or think anything. It's your thoughts that make you think something. So if you don't like how you're feeling, analyze your thoughts. And most of us never think about our thoughts, right? Ask yourself, okay, why is this thought coming to me? Where is this coming from? Is it really true what I'm thinking? And if you're like, yes, it is absolutely true, ask yourself, well, what if it wasn't true? What if this thought wasn't true? How would it change things for me? That question alone will free you so much because for this black and white thinking, how do you overcome it? You become aware. If you don't know you're doing it, then it is going to keep controlling you for the rest of your life. But once you're aware and you catch yourself saying that, oh, they never listen, or they always do this to me, those absolute words, never, always, that kind of thinking, catch yourself and ask yourself, is it really true always? I mean, they called in maybe twice this quarter, but what about all the days they did show up, right? Now that you're aware of what absolute thinking is and how it's damaging your mental health and how you can choose not to think this way, that is the key to getting better. And now every time you find yourself going down that rabbit hole, just ask yourself those simple questions. Is this really true? Now my brain always jumps to, of course it's true. I wouldn't be thinking of it. But then I'm like, okay, but is it really? And I try to show myself where it's not true. I really try to combat. That way I can stop my brain from going down those rabbit holes that cause my own stress. And I can change my perspective on how I'm interpreting all the things that are happening. That's the big thing. This all comes down to emotional regulation. If this is something that you're struggling with and you find that you get caught up in your emotions and this response, it's because you may need to work on your emotional regulation. Absolute thinking, again, is formed in early childhood. It's what we do, right? And it was there to protect you. It was there to help you through something. So in your lifetime, it did serve you and it helped you. But as an adult, it now hurts us. And somewhere in your early childhood, you probably didn't get the emotional regulation skills that you needed. And that's why we do the best job in the world in early childhood education. Just this alone is something we can save the children from. Think about the children in your care. They might be thinking in absolutes because that is what they're exposed to. And they might be thinking in absolutes because it is saving them from something right now. It is a self defense mechanism. But now we can teach them that that's not okay. And since that part of their brain is being programmed at the early ages, this is something they will take with them for the rest of their life. When they're my age, talking to people and teaching, this emotional regulation is going to be affecting them then. It's going to be there forever. Just again, another reason why early childhood is the greatest industry in the world to work for. And again, if you truly believe that, if you know my job is so much bigger than just babysitting children. And if you go on some of the Facebook groups and the things out there and you see that negativity, like I can't even be on those groups because they are so negative and they look at children as if the children are the enemy. It's insane to me. So if that negativity that you just it just isn't right for this industry. And I just don't fit in. I don't fit in this industry because I don't really believe that we have to go over a financial cliff. And I think we can prosper and do fine while serving the children. And B, if you don't like that blame of the children as if they are the bad guy, then the Visionary Circle retreat that is coming up is definitely for you. You will absolutely love it. It is for higher level thinking childcare owners who really, really think on a much higher level. We don't allow ourselves to be victims. So when the federal government is no longer helping us with grants, we don't blame and we're not looking to them to save us because we know we can save ourselves. We don't need them. And if you know and your heart is dedicated to the children, then the Visionary Circle event is awesome for you. So, when is it? Where is it? It is actually going to be November 13th through the 15th in beautiful Napa, California. And it is intense. It is definitely for higher level achieving people who aren't okay with being mediocre. That is my big thing is just, I always felt like I didn't fit in because I don't know how to be mediocre. I don't. And now I embrace it and realize there is a lot of people out there who are just like me, that we want to be extraordinary, not mediocre. It's not okay. I don't want a good life. I want a great life. And to me, the most terrifying thing in the world is looking forward to a good 401k plan. And that's all my life. That's it. Instead, I want control of my life. I want to be able to decide how much wealth I have, decide my extra incomes coming in. I don't want to just have to look forward to a retirement plan. That is scarier to me than anything. Settling for the status quo of what society has told us we're supposed to settle for. So if that resonates with you, definitely message me. I can get you the information. Email us at admin@childcarebusinessprofessional.com, and I will put it in the show notes. If you're listening to the podcast, I will put the Visionary Circle event information in the podcast show notes. So have a wonderful day, everybody. And I hope this was helpful.